This is FI 21.073, and today I'm going to talk about exploring the golden ratio, a topic that is very important to me. After all, my friends call me Phi, and that is the Greek letter used in mathematics to represent the golden ratio. So my captivation with the golden ratio has been a journey over many decades, actually, going back to my early days as an architect. And I don't want to go through that here today, and I don't want to make this an introduction to the golden ratio discussion. What I want to do is actually show you a slice of my research and show you a bit of what I've been working on, and maybe share my sense of wonder with it and why I'm so captivated. I've found that this subject is something that the more you look at it, the more intriguing it becomes, and it's compelled me to build a whole infrastructure for communicating about it and researching it, and it's been really quite interesting. I've been working on this for years now. In fact, I can think of my first thoughts about starting to go in this direction, 6-7 years ago, and it's built into this work here right now, and I've just felt like I'm starting to be able to speak about it. Things are getting orderly enough, and the work looks presentable enough, and I've got a tool for communicating with it now. And so over the last few weeks I've been working on that, and it seems like it's part of the spirit of the times. PBS just came out with a video the other day on YouTube about the golden ratio. And another kind of cosmic alignment is someone who's been a mentor to me online, Dr. Norman J. Weilberger, is starting a new program that I've become a member of on YouTube around Explore Research Level Maths. And so this video is really, I feel like, hopefully an introduction into that world and talking about the work and interests that I have. He's targeting amateur mathematicians as myself. I don't consider myself a mathematician, just somebody that's interested in beauty and truth and structure and how things go together. So I want to start to show you some of the things I've been looking at. And I think the first thing I'm going to do is go down to an animation. So this is a freeze frame in an animation that I'm working on, or have been working on. And it is a demonstration that an equilateral triangle that is circumscribed, when you draw a line through the midpoints of the sides, it will be sectioned by the circle into a golden ratio harmonic. And this is really beautiful. And this came out of asking a question. And the question was, how many different ways can one draw a golden ratio relationship from a unit measure? So starting with 2 points and finding the points on either side. How many unique ways are there to do that? And it's really quite interesting when you begin to explore this. But a drawing like this doesn't start here. It actually starts here with a blank canvas, blank slate. We haven't drawn anything yet. And the next thing is to establish our starting points. These are truly our starting points and the only givens that we're going to have in this. So everything that you're going to see drawn here in all the drawings emanate from the constructions that are possible with 2 points. And so here we have our 2 starting points, and of course we can draw a line and we can draw 2 circles from that, right? So let's go back and take a look at that and let that unfold on its own. I've been really compelled to create animations around this work because I believe as you begin to work in this area and you make drawings, you realize that drawings are a consecutive sequence of events. And that is important in understanding what constructive geometry is. I mean, it is a sequence of operations that we are performing, and they are repeatable, and they arrive at the same place each time. But I think the question is, how many unique ways can we do that and arrive at the same place? And so this animation, if we let it run, we'll continue to explore different relationships. And so we saw an equilateral triangle, and here now we're going to produce squares on top and on bottom of our unit measure, and we see that a circumscribed double square arrives at the same ratio. Now we can look at a circumscribed square, and when it's seen on point, it has that. And an equilateral triangle, the diagonals of the squares will rotate around, and we find the same measure there. Over and over again, each of these very unique and individual constructions, all arriving at the same place. Many of them are properties that are arising out of the simple regular polygons, and I've just felt it's important to be able to view all of these from kind of the same perspective, and so you can start to see like, oh, this can be arrived at in so many different ways, and there's so much interesting geometry involved in this. But right now we're just looking at pictures to understand a pattern, and I think that that's a key aspect in all of this. So let's go back now, and we'll get to right here. So this figure. Now let's just expand this, and let's look at a deeper view of what's happening inside the circle. And so we see our golden harmonic range that's established here from our two starting points. And what else can we say about this? One thing is we can actually look at the symmetries involved and see the entire figure and how the golden ratio is working within the entire circle. And then we can start to connect other points in our diagram. So let's look at these points that are around the circle here and draw lines between them and see what we get. And if we look at the chords within the circle, that chord is divided into golden ratio segments. And so are the sides of the original triangle. And you can see this nice relationship between these two here. And when we overlay all of them, we see that there's this kind of fabric inside of the circle that's made of golden ratio segments that are related to one another. It's a beautiful mandala in a way, and I actually believe this is going to become the logo for the GEOMETOR Explorer project. And we're not done here. I mean, we're really just beginning. This is such an intricate web of relationships, and we can start to explore some other lines. Let's add two more lines from our vertex out to the points along those original golden chords, and you can see that those segments are being divided by the golden ratio, or divided into golden sections by the blue line and along the blue line. And even now we can find other intersection points along the bisector, and it too. I mean, isn't this kind of amazing? And let's look at some more lines. How about the lines from the vertex on top to the points at the bottom of the circle? And we see that it's dividing the segments within the triangle into golden sections, and the links themselves are being divided into golden sections, and this beautiful star emerges. That's so incredible. And so we go from this fairly simple, straightforward geometric construction I think grade school kids could create, to an entire network of golden ratio segments that are all interlocked with one another. Truly remarkable. So let's now take a step back from this, right? So let's examine these relationships in a slightly different way. Let's look at what's happening maybe outside the circle and how this is getting projected out from within the circle. So we see our ABA relationship across here. If we look at the points around the outside of the circle, we have these beautiful 9 points that have a non-equal distribution around, making this beautiful figure. And if we draw lines from the vertex through each of those points, we see this pattern beginning to emerge with the blue lines. Now, we can look at the chords that each of those lines is creating within the circle, And if we examine those, we find that they are in a golden ratio relationship with one another. And it's kind of staggering. And if I draw your attention down to the baseline of the triangle here, we can take a look at where those rays are intersecting that baseline, and you can probably already see it. It's projecting a golden ratio harmonic range across that entire baseline. And I just want to pause here for a moment, because when I first realized this, it was kind of profound. So the fundamental geometry of a circumscribed equilateral triangle projects a golden ratio harmonic. I'll say it again. An equilateral triangle that is circumscribed projects a golden ratio harmonic range. It's truly stunning. So what else can we know? So, if you follow Dr. Weilberger, you'd know that he would consider this a harmonic pencil. Probably several harmonic pencils are laid on top of one another. The bisector of the angle, or the spread between these two lines, arrives there. So we know this line is perpendicular to that bisector, and it's allowing for this range to happen. So let's look at some other lines. Let's look at this line right here and see what does that do. And sure enough, that's also being cut, but you can see now that its bisector is perpendicular to the line over here, or the line is perpendicular to the bisector between those lines. So how about another line? Let's take the bisector for our overall figure that gives us the center for our circle, and take a look, and we can see, like, okay, well, we've got different relationship to the lines right now. The bisector between the angle is falling on the side of the triangle here, but it is still dividing our line into golden ratio segments. Let's pan out a bit and look at that line from its overall perspective, and to the extent where it's intersecting with the rays of the harmonic pencil, it's being divided into golden sections. Let's take another line. So if we just draw a line from, say, this point out here to where it intersects the circle, you see as it passes through the circle, it is intersecting this interesting point in our diagram, and is also interesting this interesting point as well. And you can probably already see it. Those points are sitting in a golden ratio relationship with one another. So if you look at this line from this point to this point, where the circle sits, it's cutting the segment into golden sections. It's remarkable. And let's add another point. So we look at where these two lines are coming together. We didn't have a point there before, and see, like, oh, well, that's also being divided. And you can spend some time looking at the different arrangements of the lines and where the divisions are happening. And let's create another line here and a new point. And sure enough, we can easily find golden ratio harmonics within this diagram. And every time we seem to add a line and a new point, it just increases the number of golden section fractures that are happening. As we look at each of those individual lines on our harmonic pencil, you can see that they are being cut themselves into golden sections. This is the second line, so the first line and the second line. Again, it's always quite easy to find. So from this diagram here, all of these interactions, right? So see that inside the circle, this outside the circle. The statement that the golden ratio is everywhere is maybe not a joke. It might actually be true. And so the question is, just how many more, right? How many more golden sections are there in this field, and how far can we go? Everything that you've seen here to this point is a manual construction, kind of a manual construction. I'm using software. I've used GeoGebra to create the models, and then I export the information from GeoGebra to create both for the animations and for the static images. And The exploration was manual. The discovery of it was manual, using tools like this. And just basically, holding this up to the screen. And this is a golden ratio caliper, by the way, if you don't know, which allowed me to discover many of the things that I was able to share with you here today. But I felt like this was a kind of a self-limiting, situation. I could only discover as many as I could put the time into. And of course, as the models become larger, they become more complex, harder to deal with, harder to accommodate changes around. And so I wanted to be able to script this, basically. So I started thinking, is it possible to create a geometric construction engine that can do the algebraic solutions and do all the proofing underneath the covers? And that led me to GEOMETOR Explorer. Oops. This is GEOMETOR Explorer. It runs in the browser. It is written in JavaScript. Uses the svg.js and algebraic libraries for doing construction. Much like you saw in the other animation, I give it 2 starting points and tell it to draw elements with those. As it draws new elements, it finds the intersections with any preceding elements as they're being added, and then traverses all the lines, looking at all the segments along the lines, and finds the golden sections. And it does all of this work with true algebraic expressions underneath the covers, right? So we're not changing things to numerical values. You can see that is the square root of 3/2 there. Even segment lengths are being expressed algebraically. This is an early prototype of the system. And so just kind of dumping information here, but you can see I'm expressing everything as an algebraic expression, not converting to decimal floating point numbers for doing the calculations. Everything is kind of interconnected here too. So as I'm creating intersection points, I'm checking to make sure that the point doesn't already exist, and if it does, then I add that element as a parent to that point. So we have this kind of dependency hierarchy that's getting built. The idea is to have the computer find golden sections and report on them. And we should be able to scroll through. So in this case, you can see this is going to find each one and show just the elements that are necessary for completing the construction here. This is a little more advanced model that I created following the same geometric construction that we've been looking at here today based on the equilateral triangle. And this is a much more complex model. And in this early prototype, I started having problems as the model got more complex. But you can see that it's running along now and finding golden sections along each of the lines and doing the analytical work. And it's really pretty cool. I'd like to take this to the next level. And this is the next level, not as far advanced, but this is a rebuilding of the analysis engine. And it's actually starting to do all of the calculations around lines and circles in a more parametric way. And I'm getting a little better results around that, but there's more work to do around that. So that is where the research has taken me. That is what I hope to continue to expand on. So I think through the GeoGebra models that I've been creating, I have these areas of interest that I want to develop. I'd like to continue working on the engine for doing this analysis and get into a more automated way of being able to demonstrate, look for more patterns. If you think about all of those instances of golden sections that we saw all through here, what are their relationships to one another? What are the proportions that they sit in with respect to one another. There are so many interesting questions to look at in the different triangular geometry and things that are happening. So, I really hope that the GEOMETOR Explorer tool will do that. And then there's also, all of the work with the geometor.com website, the Euclid project, where I'm beginning an analysis of Euclid's work, thinking about it systemically, and maybe as code as well, using some of the tools and things that you've seen here today. And there's a lot more to come. The key has just been kind of breaking through and starting to communicate and getting things in order to do that. And I feel like this is a good start. So I hope that you'll be interested and you'll want to participate. You can connect with me on phiarchitect.com. Right now, there is the YouTube channel as well, Phi Architect YouTube channel, and we'll be posting this video and others there over time as I continue to talk about the different projects, go in depth. I will be doing code reviews on the GEOMETOR Explorer and a number of other revealing aspects of the work, and plus many other more models to review. So I think I will we'll call it there. All right, so this is Phi.